attendees. Marahay na hapon to our Bicolano friends. Maupay nga kulop to our Waray attendees. Dios ni kamo tafugak to our Ibanag attendees. Maabig angarem to our Pangasinensis attendees. Maabig aaulo to our Sambali attendees. Assalamualaikum tab masayi for our Muslim attendees. Good afternoon at magandang hapon sa ating lahat. We are holding this webinar to raise awareness and boost the level of confidence and uptake on COVID-19 vaccines. Discussion will focus on the medical aspect of vaccination, review of vaccines, vaccine selection, and approval. By the end of this webinar, we hope that you will be able to decide as to vaccination is for you or not. But remember, we can only protect each other if we are all vaccinated. Building up a herd community will lead to no outbreak. We'd like to start our program by a prayer.
If my people will humble themselves and pray, if they seek my face and humble themselves and turn from their wicked ways, I will hear from heaven and forgive their sins. I will hear from heaven and heal their land. Lord, heal our land. Father, heal our land. Hear our cry and turn our nation back
Pambansang Awit ng Pilipinas.
Kayang mag-ibig, dalas ng silanganan, alam ng puso, sa titik mo'y buhay. Lupang hinirang, tuyag ka ng magiting, sa manlulupin, di ka pasisigil, sa nagatang tutok sa simoy at sa langit ng pagaw, ay tinatang tula, tawid sa pagkayang minamahal. Ang islang ng matawad mo'y tagumpay na nag-iindig, ang ituwing at araw niya kailan pamay di magdidinig. Luman ang araw ng walhagit pagsinta, buhay langit sa piling mo. Ang bigaya ng pagkay mga amin, ang mamatay ng dahil sa'yo.
May I ask our Federation President, an educator, and a woman leader, Ms. Juanita A. Ferrido, for her welcome remarks.
Greetings to all our women and other sectors of our society who are here with us in this webinar today. The Young Women's Christian Association Founders Federation of the Philippines, Incorporated, or the YWCA-FFPI, in partnership with the International Maritime Organization, Alliance of Seafarers towards achieving IMO's Global Maritime Mission, or IMO-ASTIG, headed by none other than the ambassador of IMO in the Philippines, our very own Mrs. Josephine J. Francisco. And in celebration of our Women's Month and the Federation's 95th year this year, welcome you with warmth this afternoon to our webinar on COVID-19 vaccination literacy. COVID-19 is declared by the World Health Organization as a global health pandemic where all nations are affected. This crisis reminds us how crucial our roles can be, and as we celebrate the Women's Month, as mandated in our mission, our collaboration and joint efforts with different women organizations and companies, we cannot just have deaf ears and hearts to contribute in ways that may be possible to bring hope, erase fears and anxiety to our families, communities, and our nation as a whole. As we have mentioned before, YWCA-FFPI is a support system of DepEd. And I just remember the famous Nelson Mandela who said, education is the most powerful weapon you can use to change the world. And what Dr. Marx Ballesteros mentioned about educating a woman, you educate a generation. And not to forget from our Mother Teresa of Calcutta, not all of us can do great things, but we can do small things with great love. This afternoon, as we have this session virtually with our two great speakers, experts in the field, we would like you to gain insights, erase fears, and clarify doubts that may be in your mind. We hope you become a person described by a three-letter word, art. A person with awareness, realization, and transformation. Let me just end with this note. Lifelong learning is a journey of unending discovery. A journey driven by passion, sustained by curiosity, and enriched by a true appreciation of its sunrise that heralds another dawn. So sit back, listen, and actively participate in this virtual session through our chat box. Again, good afternoon and mabuhay.
Thank you, Ma'am Ferido, for the welcoming and heartwarming remarks. These two empowered women, Ms. Ferido and the one I'm calling to introduce our esteemed resource speakers, has something in common. Their hearts are binded to YWCA-FFPI. Dr. Nona Ricafort is a familiar name in the government because of her past positions. She is also very active with other non-governmental organizations, an academic, and a philanthropist. She is a dynamic lady with a passionate heart. Ma'am Nona?
A cheerful good afternoon to one and all. There is a saying, not just anyone can steer the ship, but it takes a leader to chart its course. The distinguished speaker I am introducing with great pride and joy this afternoon is one whom I got acquainted or worked with when I was at the Commission on Higher Education. In such a short span of time, I had great admiration at her wit, wisdom, and dedication for work. So focused that I can aptly describe with confidence. Indeed, her leadership successes are attributed to these three key qualities of a visionary leader. She sees more than others see. Definitely, she sees farther than others see. And amazingly, she is one who sees before others do. It is therefore right to say leaders can only take their people no farther than they themselves have traveled. They always look for a better way to achieve the goals and objectives of her team and influence them to find a better way of doing things. Our speaker is a first-rate navigator who has traveled far, have seen more than others, and have done so before others did. Inevitably, success and progress are accomplished with this kind of leadership. This is the very reason why we have invited her to present to us in a nutshell all that we need to know, guiding us to make the right decision on which vaccine is most appropriate for us, our family, and friends. Anyone who has met our distinguished speaker knows that she's knowledgeable, an expert on issues and concern about vaccine, her no-nonsense, straight from the heart approach, and her tenacity to go on when the going gets tough have won for her the admiration and respect of the Filipino people. Our speaker is an academic scholar who graduated top of her class and who believes that continuous education coupled with hard work, is essential in contributing to our society, bringing the powerful voice of women. She was chosen as one of the top 100 inspiring people in the world, delivering for women and children by Women Deliver, a New York-based organization. While serving as a deputy majority leader in Congress, she concurrently had her MBA in health at the Ateneo Graduate School of Business, culminating with silver medal, and at the same time was sent by the U.S. Embassy for public health exposure with focus on HIV patients in 5 states in the U.S. With 9 years as state legislator, 11 years as member of Philippine Congress, 1.5 years as DOH Undersecretary, and another 1.5 years as Secretary of Health. She has emphasized women empowerment and health equity as vital components in every nation's success. Her hard work in government earned for her the Order of La Candula, the highest award conveyed to public officials trained in advanced vaccinology at the Fondation Murieu via a joint program with the University of Geneva. Our speaker believes vaccine literacy, especially among women leaders, are vital in surviving this pandemic, where solutions are marred by fears, confusion, and chaos. Believing that literacy is the antidote to vaccine hesitancy, she has taken another journey on public health advocacy by aspiring that every woman leader is not an ordinary voice in the global solution to ending COVID-19. Distinguished personalities, friends, and guests, please join me in welcoming our distinguished speaker, Honorable Congresswoman and former Health Secretary Janet Loreto Garin. Let's give her a big hand. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nona Ricafort. It's an honor to be introduced by an empowered woman who has served not only as our mentor, but as a model to women in the rural areas, in the urban areas, other Filipinos, and has extended into the global world where women makes a difference. Maraming salamat po. Of course, many were asking for the vaccines when we were in the midst of this pandemic. However, when the vaccines came, many became hesitant. And we all believe that literacy is the antidote to hesitancy. And just to give you a little background, many people do not know, but vaccination actually is one of the 20th century's 10 greatest achievements in public health. Ibalik lang po natin, let us look back and understand how this virus has created a stir in the global world. So you see the virus, when it infects a person, of course, you have an infection. Unlike other viruses that are deadly 30 or 50%, this was initially taken for granted simply because 80 to 90% of COVID patients are asymptomatic or mildly symptomatic, that they don't feel anything at all, and only 10 to 20% are symptomatic. As an offshoot of the infection, the immune cells of a person is triggered. And you have actually 3 immune cells in your body. You have your macrophages, your B cells, and your T cells. The macrophages would eat up debris of the virus, making it familiar and triggering an immune response. That is also when the antigens are produced. The B cells are actually the one that produces your antibodies, and the T cells are otherwise known as memory cells. So by the name itself, it makes you recall whatever you have been exposed to. And in the presence of another COVID-19 virus that comes into your path, then if you have an immune system that was previously triggered, it can actually prevent another infection. Unfortunately, in the case of COVID-19, it has been shown that natural infection can provide antibodies. Some are ineffective and the duration of protection is only up to 3 to 6 months. And that is why vaccination is very important. Let us also recall when a patient becomes infectious to others, because this is again another reason why we tend to be very comfortable with the virus around us. Unlike other viruses that the whole world has known, usually viruses can only be infectious once the patient displays symptoms. If you see the red curve, it refers to SARS, or the severe acute respiratory syndrome, wherein once symptoms appear, the patient becomes infectious only up 3 days after the onset of symptoms. However, in a COVID-19 infection, when the symptoms appear, almost always the patient has already been infectious 3 or even up to 5 days prior. Wala ka pang sintomas, nakakapanghawa ka na, and that is why this COVID, who is our silent enemy, has been successful in discreetly, silently, but fastly spreading. And that is why we have to be always one step ahead. In many areas of the world, we were one step behind in identifying or curtailing the virus because it hides in human beings, and we only wait for the symptomatics before they get tested. However, as documented by data that has been presented worldwide, and this is a dissection of the density of viral load in patients infected in China and Taiwan, you can see that the density of the virus is already high before the onset of the symptoms. And that is why we should always be one step ahead by testing even the asymptomatics. This is also where the beauty of vaccination comes into play, because we have to vaccinate because it serves as a protection. Because a vaccine is actually a product that stimulates a person's immune response to produce immunity, as what I have shown earlier. So when vaccinated, the vaccine actually is a harmless or a killed virus. So vaccination is actually an artificial infection. In contrast to the natural infection, an artificial infection or vaccination, there is no actual infection, but your immunity is triggered so much so that you produce antibodies enough to protect you from the harm that the virus may cause. And why do we vaccinate? Of course, to prevent severe disease and deaths. This is the misconception that others have. There will always be people who would be asking, we want a 100% effective vaccine. Kailangan namin yung hindi na kami nagkakasakit. This does not happen because no vaccine is 100% effective. But when we vaccinate, our intention, of course, is to prevent transmission, but very important to address, especially at this point of the pandemic, is to prevent deaths, to prevent severe disease, and to prevent clinical disease. Why? Because we would like our patients who have non-COVID illnesses to be given access to the hospitals, where women who are giving birth can go to the hospitals without fear of being infected, where people who have early diagnosis and who want to have preventive medicine and checkups can go to the hospitals and facilities without fear of getting infected. We must increase attention to vaccination now. The impact of COVID-19 on the economy is beyond description, and many of our overseas workers and their families are feeling the impact. This has transcended to the Filipino families in our country who are wanting of their support and who have always relied on our Filipino families here and abroad to help each other. COVID is easily transmissible. That is why our attention to vaccination is urgent. We cannot wait. The more we wait, the more aggressive the virus is. And every time it becomes aggressive, the possibility of mutation is there. At kaya kung hindi tayo magmamadali at tayo ay magpapatagal pang magpabakuna, mas lalong dumadami talon ng talon ang COVID sa bawat katawan ng tao, and in so doing, the chances of further mutating is there. Why? because that's the nature of viruses. COVID disproportionately affects the elderly. And this has a huge impact in our population because the seniors who need the support of the young and the young who need the mentorship of the seniors are barred from frequently interacting with each other. The pandemic has also provided a fertile ground for misinformation. And again, this webinar, so we thank the organizations who have been very persistent in seeing to it that this webinar will not only be a plan, but will be in full implementation. We thank YWCA Founders Federation of the Philippines Incorporated for being a part of our community in pushing for vaccination, information, and dissemination. There has also been a lot of fears simply because there are allegations that the development of the vaccine has been too fast. There are 3 phases of vaccine development that are required prior to the issuance of a CPR. So phase 4 is actually monitoring and surveillance. And even in phase 3, which I will show earlier, phase 3A is the minimum requirement for a product to be made commercially available. Prior to the clinical phases of development, several studies have actually been conducted, so much so that when a product enters phase 1, you are definitely sure that the vaccine does not cause deaths. Proceeding to clinical phases of development simply means the vaccine has been declared safe and further exemplified by determining the possibility of serious side effects. The dosage, the common short-term side effects, the immune system's response to the vaccine, all of these are actually evaluated. And when you reach phase 3A, it simply means when people get the vaccine compared to those who were not vaccinated, what are the pros and cons? Basically, laymanizing, it is an assessment of the benefits vis-a-vis the risks that the person will have. It will also answer the question whether the vaccine is effective and whether the vaccine will be beneficial to the specific population. The clinical phases of vaccine development has been divided into phase 1, 2, 3A, 3B, and phase 4. You do not have to wait for phase 4 because that usually follows after approval and licensing. As the word implies, it refers to surveillance. Phase 3B refers to additional claims. That is the reason why when a product has finished phase 3A, it is now ready for commercial use. The emergency use authorization simply means the benefits has outweighed the risks. The product has been proved to be safe and effective. However, there are still some data that are being finalized, so much so that it is only recommended to a certain niche of the population. It's very difficult for us to go into the technicality of immunization and of clinical development, precise for us to say, trust the experts, because vaccines will not be out in the market if it will do you harm. Many people have actually forgotten the phases of infectious diseases, and that is why anti-vaxxers or wrong information about the vaccines prevail in our community. And this is not only in the Philippines, it's actually global. You see in the picture that I'm flashing, patients who had polio. Ang naaalala lang po kasi natin, yung ibang may polio who have survived the virus cannot walk or would leap. Unknown to many, the polio virus actually attacks even the respiratory muscles. So at the time na hindi nagpabakuna yung iba, kapag natamaan sila ng polio virus, then they would have to end up in these equipments. Basically, it will allow you to breathe because your respiratory muscles are paralyzed. And it's been difficult to get out of the machine simply because polio virus has infected you. Smallpox was eradicated for several decades. And we are thankful that the vaccine solved this problem with the world. This is Apolinario Mabini. He is the father of the Philippine Revolution. And when the movie General Luna was being shown in many cinemas, many were asking, why is Apolinario Mabini sitting all the time? Bakit po siya naka-wheelchair? Unknown to many, when he planned the revolution together with our other heroes, he was healthy. However, on the night before they were about to attack and fight for freedom and give the Philippines, including women and their families, the democracy that everybody desires, he suddenly cannot walk. So much so that his comrades had to carry him. And how difficult it is for a leader. Napakahirap bilang isang leader na kung kayo i-aatake na, your people have to carry you simply because you cannot walk and you cannot stand up. Nagkaroon ng maraming haka-haka. He was accused by his enemies and by people who do not believe in him that he had herpes, a sexually transmitted disease. His character was being assassinated, and he was painted as somebody who abused women. However, many of the Filipinos who knew him personally believed in him and proceeded with the plans. We had democracy, but Apolinario Mabini wasn't able to walk again. 3 years after he died, his family exhumed his remains because they wanted to know the truth and they wanted to prove that all of these issues about STD and Apolinario Mabini was false. True enough, when they exhumed his body, what they saw in his barrows is actually the polio virus because he was not vaccinated. There were also a lot of situations that affected vaccination simply because fears are not answered. And many people who would tend to pass around information will forget that with passing of information comes responsibility. Tetanus toxoid and abortion was actually a situation that happened in the Philippines. Tetanus was geared to eliminate neonatal tetanus simply because when we cut the cord, especially in the Philippine setting before and even up to now, we have a lot of home deliveries. The tetanus toxoid was included in the National Immunization Program in 1993. However, in 1995, tetanus toxoid was wrongly accused as an anti-fertility vaccine, so much so that the coverage fell from 86% in 1993 to 20% in 1995. What happened? There was an increase in neonatal tetanus deaths, and when the government decided to put back the program after 3 years, tetanus deaths again decreased. Pero ano ang nangyari dun sa mga batang namatay na? Sa mga nanay na namatay dahil walang bakuna, it was difficult to make them live again because they're already dead. And these are the consequences when vaccine hesitancy comes simply because fake information is being peddled. Another very popular situation that occurred was in 1998 when the measles, mumps, and rubella vaccine was wrongly claimed to be related to autism. This gained wide publicity because Dr. Wakefield, who was actually known in the medical community as a doctor who fooled the world, started going around seeking patients, seeking families who had children with autism. And whenever he would found a family with a child who has autism, he would simply pull out the vaccination card and ask, was he vaccinated with MMR? He was trying to link that all the patients who had autism were vaccinated with MMR. However, those who do not have autism were also vaccinated. In other words, there was no direct link between the vaccine and autism, and there was no statistical significance among children infected with autism vis-a-vis those who do not have autism but were also vaccinated. The government of the US moved, and the FBI found that the lawyers who were in cahoots with Andrew Wakefield were actually lawyers who would always file cases against vaccine manufacturing facilities. Lancet retracted the article in 2010, but the damage has spread. And the internet facilitated the spread of the wrong information. Dr. Wakefield lost his license, but will it bring back the lives of children who already died of measles? Of course, no. And this is what happened to the Philippines because in 2012, word of what happened in the US, the misinformation spread to the Philippines without the correct information coming with it. And the coverage of MMR, or the second dose of the vaccines, went down from 85% to 30%. So that's why you see a multicolored map. The light green color represents high vaccination coverage. The yellow color represents low vaccination coverage. And the red color represents very low vaccination coverage. What was the consequence of this? Because measles is airborne, where one patient can spread to 17 other people, and those 17 can spread the infection to 17 others, cases arose in our country. So if you see the incidence of measles mortality and morbidity on a bi-monthly plotting in 2013, you can see how it was increasing. Sadly, because of the poor vaccination coverage, because of the fake information peddled by Dr. Wakefield, this was how our country looked at in 2014. It was a tough battle for us to fight misinformation. Natuto ang mga Pilipino, marami ang bumalik at nagpabakuna, but lives lost. Children who suffered the complications, children who went blind because of measles, those who had encephalitis, severe pneumonia, whose physical health was extremely affected. These complications cannot be repaired simply because fake news has affected us. And if you see the measles surveillance in 2013 and 2014, even if only some regions were not vaccinated, cases spread all over. And there were a lot of deaths. It was a sad day for the Philippine immunization program. Vaccine hesitancy, therefore, became a top 10 global health threat. And the DOH has also identified hesitancy as one of the reasons for measles outbreak. Vaccine hesitancy is now a major problem, not only in the Philippines, but the whole world. So much so that in 2019, the World Health Organization has gathered governments, experts, medical practitioners to help counter vaccine hesitancy. This paved way for coining the new word, what we call infodemic. Infodemic actually refers to the rapid spread of both accurate and inaccurate information about a disease. And as facts, rumors, and fears mix and disperse, it becomes difficult to learn essential information about an issue. And this is the reason why sometimes you think it's right, because it's a combination of facts and fears mixed and dispersed, so that most of the laymen, most of the non-doctors would find it difficult to dissect which is science and which is infodemic. We actually have a lot of COVID-19 vaccines. Many are asking, why do they have to be a lot? Bakit ba iba-ibang klase ang bakuna natin? In a pandemic, we have to act with speed and unity. We cannot just wait for one technology to provide all the vaccines that the world needs simply because the virus is moving fast, really fast. And whenever it moves, whenever it jumps from one person to another person, especially when it infects patients with comorbidities, patients with cancers, then these are the perfect situations where a virus again mutates. And when we are lucky that what we have now are mutations, but we still have a lot of the original viruses, so much so that the vaccines are still effective. But if we keep on delaying immunization, there is a possibility that the virus will mutate and vaccines might be rendered ineffective. But if we move now, vaccinating yourself does not mean it's only a protection for yourself. Vaccinating yourself means you're protecting yourself, your family, your co-workers, your country, and even the whole world. Because vaccine actually works to save lives. An estimated 2 to 3 million deaths are prevented every year, and vaccines have been shown to protect us against 26 diseases. These are the diseases that are incorporated in our national immunization program. It also helps limit the spread of antibiotic resistance. Some of you might be wondering why some of our patients are not responding to the common antibiotics we are using. It is because with the rampant infection brought about by the non-maximal utilization of vaccines, then we have to frequently use antibiotics, and that would mean antibiotic resistance. Meron sanang gamot, pero hindi naman nagiging epektibo sa dami ng infeksyon. Kaya para maging manatiling epektibo ang antibiotics, we need to limit the infection, and vaccination is again the solution. Testing still goes hand in hand with vaccination, because while we have started the rollout, it is very important to immediately isolate the positives, including the direct contacts who are on quarantine, because we cannot afford to be vaccinating some, but the virus is rapidly spreading. As what we have mentioned earlier, when we minimize or we limit or we move to attain our goal of 0 deaths, then it will be better not only for health workers, but for our scientists who are still trying to understand this virus. Vaccinology is a delicate fabric whose integrity we must seek to preserve. An infodemic kills. We understand your fears. We hear you. It's not that easy to laymanize the science behind immunization, but precise for us to say na ang bakuna ay proteksyon because it allows our body to create our own soldiers geared towards the viruses that are in our environment. If you don't have vaccines, if you opt for natural infection, you will have the protection. However, the possibility of death, the possibility of debilitating complications will be there. So it's a lot better to be protected without the actual clinical infection. Vaccination is not just the government's obligation. It is every citizen's right. But we cannot just say and call and tell the government, provide us with this and provide us with that. What is very important is that we understand na hindi kaya ito ng gobyerno na mag-isa. Kailangan ang suporta ng bawat pamilyang Pilipino, because when you allow yourself and your family to be vaccinated, you create an environment where it becomes untenable for the virus to continue on surviving. Though we have newly developed COVID-19 vaccines that are actually poised to be a powerful tool in the control of this devastating pandemic, the public's confidence and willingness to receive the vaccines will determine the outcome of this mass-scale public health intervention. Thank you very much. And again, we do hope that we have shared a layer of fears, and we are very much willing to answer everything that you need to know, as long as we have the answers for that, because we believe that knowledge is information. Maraming salamat.
Thank you, Kong Janet Garin, for your valuable presentation. May I call back now Dr. Nona Ricoport to introduce our second speaker.
It is said that life would not be as vibrant and engaging without the lessons we learn, without the exciting experiences we undergo, without the enormous challenges we face, without the expectation of the many organizations and institutions for us to demonstrate our prowess and wisdom, and lastly, without the caring people who continuously push us to lead. In a nutshell, this aptly describes our distinguished speaker. Indeed, it is an honor to be given the task to introduce a distinguished medical practitioner of varied expertise who have not only undergone many lessons, experiences, and challenges, but have a litany of credentials and achievements as I research about her. Seriously though, to those of you who know the rules of baseball, our distinguished speaker did not live by the rules of baseball. 3 strikes and you are out. He was like a Babe Ruth, who was known for the record of highest home runs. Babe Ruth kept on batting, and she also holds the record of most number of strikeouts. What matters are keep on batting. This is the perseverance and desire in the heart of our speaker to serve humanity. Among her many current prestigious posts held are as President of the Immunization Partners in Asia Pacific, Executive Director of the International Society of Tropical Pediatrics, founder of the Asian Strategic Alliance for Pneumococcal Disease Prevention, Secretary General and past President of the Asian Society for Pediatric Infectious Diseases, founding President and Executive Director of the Philippine Foundation for Vaccination, and also a WHO Technical Advisor. Likewise, she served in various capacities in the national medical organizations such as PMA, PPS, PIDPS, and many others Asian medical and professional societies. Her work has earned for her numerous national and international honors and awards in the professional, academic, and research field, including being awarded as the Outstanding Physician for 2009, the prestigious Dr. Jose Rizal Memorial Award for Academe, the Asian Outstanding Pediatrician Award, and the UP Centennial Outstanding Researcher. With great pride, the 2018 Outstanding Professional in Medicine given by the Professional Regulatory Commission of the Philippines. As vaccine advocate, she was named Pneumonia Fighter in 2018 by the Just Action Organization, a US-based corporation associated with people empowerment. An expert in infectious diseases at the Philippine General Hospital. Fellow women advocates, ladies and gentlemen, please join me in an applause as we welcome UP Professor Emeritus at the College of Medicine, former Vice Chancellor, and the current head of the UP Vaccine Study Group. Let us welcome Dr. Lulu C. Bravo.
Good afternoon to everyone here, and thank you for that very generous introduction, Miss Nona Rica Ford. I know they told me that you are the model, and really, it's not just the introduction, it's the poetic way that you have been doing that introduction. I really appreciate that. I've never been introduced like that. So thank you, thank you. And good afternoon to your president, Miss Juanita Ferredo, and to all the vice presidents. I didn't realize that the Young Women's YWCA, right? And the Founders Federation of the Philippines can really, wow, you have so many participants today. And I'm really honored to be here. So I guess I'd also need to congratulate my good friend, Congresswoman Jeanette Guerin, whom I have worked with in the past, and I know has really that vision to really go for making sure that we have the best things for our children and our people. As Secretary of Health, I knew at heart that she has it to give what we need for our children and the best health care delivery. So I would like now to discuss with you, as was assigned to me, something that will tell you more about what we know about. Wait, I'm trying to share my screen now. Wait, where's my screen? I'm trying to share my screen now with you, okay? And here it is. I am tasked now to tell you, okay, I just need to, wait, I just need to pull this up. Okay. Huh. Okay, I entitled my talk, Basic Vaccinology During the COVID Pandemic Times. I'm glad that Dr. Garin has already mentioned to you what COVID is all about and why we need to be vaccinated. Because I look over your chat box and it seems that you are kind of worried whether the vaccine will be right for you. You know, before I go into my discussion, I can tell you honestly, COVID vaccine is right for you, whether you have some comorbidities, whether you are a senior citizen, just like me, whether you are actually sometimes even pregnant. But there is a right vaccine for you. It may be not all the kinds of vaccine that are available now. And you must actually be screened to be able to get the right vaccine for you. And I can tell you honestly, you have to take that vaccine. Because otherwise, if you don't take a vaccine, you are choosing to get the risk of a severe illness, not just for you, but also for your family. And you can even have the risk of dying from it, especially if you are a senior citizen or if you have all the comorbidities of asthma, diabetes, hypertension, because these are the people who are at risk of dying from COVID. So we must know more about COVID and what vaccine would be right for you, right? So let's all begin with just some simple review, which I hope that you also learn from what Dr. Garin has mentioned. 3 million lives of not just children, but everyone is saved every year from vaccination. So there is something about vaccine. It has been here for 220 years. Why should you be afraid of vaccination? It's been here all along. Your children, they were vaccinated. And now it's your turn to get vaccinated, isn't it? All the young women, or the old women, all the medium-aged women, you have to be vaccinated. And there are more than 26 diseases now that are vaccine preventable, whether it is measles, rubella, cholera, influenza, diphtheria, mumps, tetanus, all of these, and including dengue, including COVID, including malaria, which is not in my picture. They are now vaccine preventable. And as I said, how do you get to be immune? Let's talk about this. Dr. Garin has mentioned that, you know, you have to have all these immunodefense mechanisms of all the cells in your body. If you are a normal person, your immune system should work so that once a natural infection comes to you, you get to be immune if you survive it, right? That is if you survive it. Just like if you had measles, if you have polio, if you have diphtheria, if you have typhoid, if you survive that disease, then you get immune. But it may not be also for long. It may not be for lifetime. Just like some diseases like influenza. It's just a short immunity. So you have to get it yearly, right? There are vaccines that can be giving you lifetime protection, like chickenpox. If you get 2 doses, you can get a lifetime protection. And just like measles, it can be lifetime protection. But some may not. So this is what you have to be careful about. You have to know how long this immunity will last. And because that is so, there is this vaccine that can actually save you from getting the disease. This is what 220 years of vaccination is all about. You have to get something, not the natural infection, not the disease itself, not the risk of dying from that infection, but something that will simulate, something that will get into your body and will make your body fight that infection so that you can be saved from that infection when it when you get to be exposed, right? But then, as was mentioned earlier, no vaccine, no disease can really say that you are free from any side effects, any harm, any severe illness, or any severe symptom. And although we want as much as possible to have a vaccine that will be safe 100%, without side effects, unfortunately, there is no such thing. And there is also no such thing as a vaccine that will be highly effective or will have, long-term lifetime immunity 100%. Or a vaccine that you can afford always. So that's the reason why the government must help us, must give the people the vaccine that is right for them. And sometimes we want a vaccine that will be not injected because we are sometimes afraid of needles. I'm sorry, but the COVID vaccine are all injectable. Maybe in 10 years, we may have an oral vaccine, but not now. There are indeed oral vaccines like rotavirus and like some of the typhoid vaccine. They are oral, but not all of them. They're usually given by the needle prick. And there are some vaccines that really needs very, very low temperature for its storage. The usual vaccine that we have are 2 to 8 degrees centigrade, which is ordinary temperature of the refrigerator. And that's easily delivered, that's easily given by private individuals. But when your vaccine has a storage of -80, that's deep freeze, it's just like your embryo being put into a deep freeze, and you can revive that embryo, in IVF. You can revive that embryo soon after. That is the low, very, very low temperature that you need in some of these vaccines now that are available, like the mRNA vaccines, the Pfizer vaccine. But these are very difficult to do, right? So we go back to having a vaccine that is safe and effective. And as I said, no such thing occurs. But we must take a risk, because if we don't do nothing, if we are so afraid of possible side effects, or we are afraid that the vaccine might not be effective, might not take effect, then you are choosing to get the risk of disease itself. And your choice is, would you like to die from that disease? That is really something that I cannot really think of. And for those of you that maybe is still afraid of, look at the many, 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 many people who have already died from COVID. More than 2 million now, 2.5 in the world. And in the Philippines, it's more than 12,000. In the US alone, wow, it has gone to 600,000 deaths in 1 year. And many, many of our health frontliners, I grieve when my good friend died early on, almost a year now from COVID. She's a leader. She's a much respected and admired pediatrician. And I really grieved when she died. And I'm doing everything I can to help control our COVID. That is my commitment. And I've said that over and over again. I'm dedicating all my lectures in her memory. And that's Dr. Salvacion Gatchalian, the president of the Philippine Pediatric Society, who died while in office last year. Ladies and gentlemen, you don't want danger, but we must realize that when Dr. Garin said that vaccines go through a long process of clinical trials, it means that we want a vaccine that will be safe above all else. We will not give a vaccine that will actually harm people. Yes, there will be side effects, but the benefits of that vaccine will be far outweighing that risk. As I said, think about it. You don't want people to get the severe disease. You don't want people to spend all their money in a hospital. Did you know how much it costs to be a COVID patient in a private hospital now? My God, you will spend millions. Did you know that? And if you don't have millions, please don't get sick with COVID. And of course, we know the deaths are high. It's almost 2%. So for every 100 that will get COVID, 2 will die. We just hope that it will not be you or I. As I said, I'm dedicating this to the memory of all the people who died from COVID and who are really getting so worse, getting poor because of hospitalization from COVID. Vaccines work. We all know that. I've worked with vaccines for the longest time. I started my career in pediatrics 1974, looking at how mothers look at vaccine. And it won me 3rd prize in the Philippine Pediatric Society's annual research contest. And I'm proud of that because ever since I've worked with vaccines all my life and working on vaccine trials. And I've really, really wanted people to prevent disease rather than treat them. Do you know that if you prevent disease, you really will be something like, a superior doctor to us? An inferior doctor treats disease. An inferior doctor, remember that, treats disease, whereas a superior doctor prevents disease. But sometimes patients don't realize that. They always say, thank you, doctor, for treating me. When they must realize that having prevented that disease could have been much more beneficial to them. Don't you realize that? Okay, here are some very rapid facts about vaccines. Just again to show you that you have to be vaccinated. Okay, vaccines can protect against all other diseases other than the ones that they are preventing. Like if you prevent measles, you also prevent pneumonia, malnutrition, even severe diarrhea, even organ failure. It can extend your life expectancy. Now we are seeing a lot of 90s and 100s, whereas in the Middle Ages without a vaccine, you only give a life of 45 years old. That's the oldest. Now we are having 100. And countries save costs through vaccination program. Look at the savings from medical costs. Now, vaccines can prevent cancer, liver cancer, and cervical cancer. And if you don't know that, oh my God, you should know that. That there will be more vaccines that will prevent even breast cancer. It will prevent gastric cancer. It will prevent prostate cancer in the future. A lot of this vaccine development is underway. And even Alzheimer's disease for us elderly people. We look forward to those kinds of vaccines. Of course, vaccines enhance equity. It's not only for the rich and famous. It's also for the poor and underserved people of the world. And that's the reason why the Department of Health wants to give vaccines to the poor. Because the poor are the highest risk of dying from these diseases because they cannot access medical care. And vaccines prevent development of antibiotic resistance. Remember, whenever you get sick, you want to get antibiotics. And pretty soon, those antibiotics will not work for you anymore. And you can get sick and not be treated, and you can die from antibiotic resistance. And that's the reason why we have to have vaccines, so that you don't have to take all the vaccines, all the antibiotics that you actually do on self-medication. Okay, vaccines promote safe travel, right? We know that. We cannot travel now with the disease that we have. And this is my favorite. Vaccines empower women. Look at all of us, all women. Of course, I think there are men here too, right? But all the women are empowered because they don't have to get to take care of sick husbands and sick children when they are vaccinated. Can you realize that? Okay, vaccines promote peace. Remember, President Duterte said, okay, we will stop fighting first until the vaccines, COVID vaccines are given to everyone. That is promoting peace. No fire, ceasefire until. And that also happened in Pakistan when they had to cease fire because they have to give polio vaccination. See? And of course, vaccination promotes economic growth. We have to open our economy and we have to be vaccinated before we have all of those people coming in and serving again in the malls, in the barbershop, in the restaurant, all of them, right? Now, let me divert a little and say that vaccines have been so successful that they have become victims of their own success. Why is that? Because if you look at the red line now, you see that the diseases, which is the red line, when they are there, a vaccine is developed so that the disease, the blue line, which is the vaccine, can control the disease and make it disappear, right? So once you get the vaccine, the red line goes down, the vaccine goes up, the blue line goes up. Now, the green line, if you will see that, are the side effects. And if you are having the severe disease, which is the red line, not many people think about the side effects yet until they don't see the disease anymore. And when they don't see the disease anymore, that's when they begin to look at the side effects. And then they forget that they need the vaccine. So they start becoming complacent and they start avoiding vaccine maybe, and that's when outbreak comes. And there are many reasons why this vaccination program will start going down. Not just about complacency, not just because you don't see the disease anymore, but because of what Dr. Garin said, infodemics, the scare that you hear, the social media that you read that says that, oh, vaccines are harmful, vaccines can cause death, which is not science-based. They are chismis-based, if I may say so. They are not science-based. They are based on lies. They are based on unfactual or not on facts. So please, we have to control infodemics, right? So when you have this, you start vaccinating again, and very soon, once you get to the highest point of vaccination, the red disease, the red line goes out, and now it's only the green line, the vaccine adverse events that you might really be actually worried about. So you care about vaccine safety. These are the adverse events following vaccination. That is what you are so scared of. And I see the chat box and I see that most of your questions are really, again, whether you need or whether you can be vaccinated. And you are worried that if you get vaccinated, that you can get all of this possible harm. So this is understandable. And that's the reason why we, in the vaccine cluster and in the government's expert committees, have tried to give out this information. And thank you, Dr. Garin and the YWCA for sponsoring this occasion to really educate the public on what vaccines are all about. Because vaccines are safe and effective when used correctly. And when you actually are given the approval by the FDA, then they are safe and they are effective and they are for you. And you should not actually shy away or avoid them. And you can read about it and you can ask the experts and you can ask your doctors, especially those who are trustworthy enough. Please do not refer to the social media and don't share them if you do not know the sources of those very, very unfortunate social media information. Okay, as we said, they are not really risk-free and adverse events occur following vaccination. This we all know. And I can tell you, I've worked with vaccines for all my life. And there is no 100% safe. And that is the reason why we have to really come out and say, are these reactions common? Are they very common? Or are they rare or very rare? Because that is when you will have to decide whether the benefits will actually outweigh the risk. Because if so, if the benefits, if you can save people from dying, then the risk of getting the side effects of headaches, nausea, vomiting, 2 days loss of work because you feel down, those are not going to be more than what it can do, which is to save you from dying and save you from getting the disease, which can cost you millions when you start treating. So I know that general public has low tolerance for all these adverse events following vaccination. And because we use them for healthy persons. And now we can use the COVID vaccine for even the not so healthy, by the way. We really need a high standard of safety. And that's what we do as experts. That's what we want to say. We have known vaccines all this almost 220 years of vaccination. We have studied the vaccine adverse reactions. We have studied the many kinds of vaccines that have come up in the last 200 years, right? And there are many of them. There are many different types of vaccines, and they have many different kinds of adverse reactions. Look at this. BCG, the anti-TB tuberculosis vaccine. What can it do? It can cause a severe reaction, a lump there, even simulate your TB disease. It can even become like a TB itself because it's a live vaccine. A live vaccine usually can cause something like it simulates the total disease itself in a minor way, though. And then there is the pertussis vaccine, which is a whole cell, just like your inactivated vaccine. And did you know that it can also cause anaphylaxis? Do you know it can also cause drowsiness and seizures and encephalopathy? But did you know that we give them millions every year to our children? And almost so many millions in the Philippines, because we have 2.5 million children being born every year. But in the whole world, we use millions and millions of these vaccines to our own children. And the oral polio vaccine, do you know that it can also cause paralysis? The hepatitis B vaccine that you must have gotten, some of you, it can cause anaphylactic shock too, you know. The tetanus, it can cause anaphylaxis. Mumps, it can cause a lot of swelling. Measles, rubella, these are all the adverse events that we know can occur in so many things else. And we usually characterize these adverse events by saying, are they common, very common, are they uncommon? And it depends on how many cases occur over a denominator. And when we say that it is very rare, it's usually 1 in 100,000. That is already very rare. Do you know that anaphylaxis occurs in 1 to 4 per million? That is very, very rare. But of course, common ones would be some form of allergic like rashes. Oh, that's not anaphylaxis. Okay, and the fever and the malaise, oh, that is more common. And that is what you are afraid of. And you are not afraid of dying from COVID. I guess that is what you have to weigh, right? You know why you are afraid to get a vaccine? Because of the dengue vaccine story. I have always felt bad about this dengue vaccine story because this is a story of how to demonize a vaccine and destroy a national immunization program. Because of this, a lot of children were not being given vaccine, and we had more than 600 children who died unnecessarily from measles a year after we got scared of this vaccination program. And that is something that, you know, really hurts our Philippine Foundation for Vaccination because we exist to really educate, advocate, and teach them and do research on how the value of vaccine must be instituted to our people. Unfortunately, this came about in 2018 that actually made it happen that a lot of our people are now so afraid of vaccines. But I can tell you honestly, this vaccine does not have a definite evidence, no evidence at all, the dengue vaccine that killed these children. That is something that I really am very, very definite about. There is no evidence that it killed those children. But what happened next because of the noise and the complacency and everything else that happened, we got to lose that value of vaccination. And our vaccine confidence, which has been from 1990 at the time of Dr. Flavier, was almost 100%, went down to almost only 32%. And that is the reason, my dear ladies and gentlemen, why we are suffering. Our country is suffering from vaccine hesitancy much more than the other peoples of the world. Why other countries are demanding vaccine and we are trying to avoid them. At least not for me, not for the health frontliners, but for the other ordinary people who are not seeing the risk of COVID, or maybe have not yet lost a loved one, have not yet lost a family member. But I can tell you honestly, remember that, because the vaccine hesitancy that we have now is not really tenable. What you think could happen after a vaccination does not mean that the vaccine caused it. There is a temporal association. Something that happens after a vaccine does not mean that it was caused by the vaccine. And just because one event follows another does not mean that it was caused, the second was caused by the first, right? Logically. And that's the reason why we are here trying to explain, to educate to our people that in fact, you know, there will be adverse event, but then there will always be screening of your patients. We will look at the contraindication. This is what is happening now in our country. As far as I know, the experts are doing so much to prevent or reduce the risk of serious adverse reactions. And this, as we know, is any untoward medical occurrence following an immunization, and does not necessarily have to be caused by the vaccine. But some people, you know, they think it's always like that. And that is the reason why we in the experts committee would really want to educate and screen and do everything here. We do have contraindications and precautions when giving vaccines. We have permanent and we have temporary contraindications. Permanent are those that will tell you you will never give that vaccine again, okay? And temporary is we can delay giving that vaccine because you see that there is something there that may tell you, okay, this is not a good time for you to give the vaccine when he is suffering from an illness or he has an asthma attack or his BP is very high, then you don't give the vaccine yet. You can make him stable first or get him to have a more well and a better condition before you give the vaccine, all right? That is what also we want when we do precautionary measures. So don't be afraid. You have to be screened. You have to ask your doctor because these contraindications will be screened out. So don't put your vaccination in the hands of someone who do not know vaccinology. Go to your doctor. Those are the ones that will give you the right information. And they will know what contraindications should be there. Of course, some of this permanent contraindication is when you do have a severe allergy and any previous dose of a vaccine that showed anaphylaxis or severe allergy will be a contraindication to your next dose, okay? And of course, they will look at whether previous doses have given you some severe side effects or that you may be suffering from an immune deficiency disorder that will tell you, okay, don't let us get, you know, this disease. This vaccine will not be good for them. So let me just say that, yes, we have. The doctors will tell you. So I cannot talk about all of this because this is a long process. And as I said, the experts are talking all about the contraindications, what we will do in order to make sure, to ensure that you don't get into adverse and serious reactions. But there are invalid contraindications that you might be looking at because sometimes if you think that you have just a mild illness like a cough and a cold, that you will be contraindicated. No, a mild illness like a cough may not really be a contraindication. And mild allergies, which are not anaphylactic, is not really a contraindication. Or when you are breastfeeding, you're not really going to be, not being given And then some family history of allergy does not necessarily tell you that you cannot be given the vaccine, or history of seizure in the family may not be. But if you are the one having seizures, then they must analyze first, investigate, and see whether you can be given the vaccine. Okay? So these are things that will be reported and will really be important to identify, and then we will be able to assist the decision-making process, communicate this to our patients and the audience, and do further research. As you all know, the series of clinical trials have not yet been completed, and we all want to make sure that what we have as the data will always help us to make the proper, appropriate decision making, right? So make sure that the process of surveillance and the response team are here. We are here to help the government, the experts panel. I will tell you that this is the safety concerns. There are many types. I cannot tell you all of these, but there are many types, and one vaccine will be good for you. At least one vaccine can be good for you. And the vaccine expert panel are using all their energies and their data and their background information on who the vaccine suppliers are, what is the technology, what is the track record of the company in vaccine development, what is the reliability, the stability, what is the safety databases, what is the immunogenicity, the efficacy, what is the vaccine implementation. You know, there are so many criteria, there are so many things. And an ordinary person may not be able to absorb everything. And little knowledge, definitely, as we all know, is a dangerous thing. And so we have to depend, we have to listen to the experts. We have to get to our FDA to approve that. And they are backed by these experts. So when they introduce a vaccine that is for you, even if it is an emergency use, meaning we have not finished everything in the clinical trial, but it is a vaccine that will be a response to the public health emergency that we are now in, the pandemic, please trust them, because that is the only way that we can deal with this pandemic. The emergency use is the response that we have all over the world. We are being given an emergency use authorization for vaccines that have been shown, not yet completely finished in the trials, but have shown great safety and efficacy and will be good to respond. We do not wait until 2 years, 3 years to get a vaccine to be marketed now, because we cannot afford to lose millions and millions more to this COVID. And thus, we have seen some minor AEFIs based on the Astra, the Pfizer, the Moderna. Yes, there could be myalgia, fatigue, headache, malaise, chills. These are the minor ones that we have seen, nausea, vomiting, some serious ones, which are hemolytic anemia, some transverse myelitis, some appendicitis, Bell's palsy. But let me tell you, the trials have not been finished. And even these serious adverse events may actually be not related to the vaccine at all. And that is the reason why what you hear as some temporary stopping of the vaccine does not necessarily mean that the effect or the side effect or the adverse events that you hear has already been related to the vaccine, because they are just investigating, and if they continue the vaccination process, then that means that they have seen that the benefits far outweigh the risk that there may be, and that it does not necessarily mean that the adverse event was due to the vaccine itself. Okay, so I must really tell you that surveillance and monitor are ongoing all over the world, not only in the Philippines. And this is the deployment plan for our vaccination rollout. It is in place, and trust me, everybody is working hard to ensure that when you are vaccinated, just like this, You are first screened, okay? And your BP will be going to be monitored. And once you get the vaccine, you can be classified, you will be monitored, you will be observed. And if you needed, we know there is such a thing as if you need to be hospitalized because of the vaccine, that there is now an indemnification, and there is a law that will make sure that the expenses of hospitalization due to the vaccine will be given out. So there would be classification of those adverse events. As you know, we will be able to tell you whether these adverse events were due to the vaccine, or whether it is due to the manufacturing process, or whether this is due to an error in your immunization program, or sometimes you get contaminated. These are multiple doses. And whether it is anxiety related. And mind you, there are so many anxiety related reaction that we are getting in the first week of our vaccination rollout. And let me just again mention to you that the president told us all Filipinos should have the vaccine without exception. So there is a prioritization program because the vaccines are not actually going to be available all throughout. So there is limited availability, and so there must be prioritization. The frontliners are prioritized, the senior citizens, then those comorbid people with hypertension, diabetes. So you are going to be given the vaccine, even if you have this. Other frontliners and in the indigent population, the poor, are going to be prioritized according to the prioritization scheme. That is Group A. Group B are the teachers, the social workers, essential workers, government workers, overseas Filipino workers. This is Group B. And then Group C are the rest of the population who will not be in this A and B category. There are still a lot of questions to be answered. As I said, it's not finished yet, but we don't know how long the vaccine immunization power when will it run out? We don't know yet. It's ongoing. We will know in the future. And what are the risk factors if we know that, not all vaccines will be effective? What are those who will not have any effectivity? We still have to look. What are the other long-term side effects? We don't know yet. But rest assured that this will be addressed by the clinical trials. So there are many vaccines that we still do not know, but we are trying to learn, and whatever the data will say, this will be communicated to the WHO. The WHO can tell us whether you need to be vaccinated, whether we will discontinue. These are what we want people to take home today. That the benefits of vaccination greatly outweigh the risk, and many more COVID illnesses and deaths would occur without the vaccines. Vaccines don't save lives. It's the vaccination that does. So please, there are many vaccines that are being trialed, investigated using scientific methods, which will ensure its safety and will be approved for public use by the appropriate authorities. Let us trust in them. Let us trust in the vaccines. Let us trust in the policies that the experts will do. And there is an urgent need for everyone to unite and work together to save lives and our economy. We cannot be poor all the time. We have to open. Sabi nga natin, we don't want to lose lives. We don't want to lose jobs. We don't want to be quarantined. We don't want to just stay home all the time. We need to be back to our health and our wealth. Thank you very much. I hope we all work together, and please never be idle, but be reading, writing, praying, meditating, and endeavoring something for the public good. Thank you very much.
Wow. Thank you, Doctors Garin and Bravo. for a very comprehensive presentation. Loads of information that we can use to discern and decide. Hearing all the benefits of vaccines and all that, now I will say, I will have my vaccination. But of course, we know that there's still a lot of you who has question in your mind that cannot be answered later. But we will have an open forum, so you may log on your questions in the chat box. And may I request you to please make sure that your questions are relevant and not repetitive. But before the open forum, we will have our pictures taken. May we request everyone, all the attendees, participants, to open your camera. Our technical group will have our picture taken. Give your best smile. Are we now on the technical group?
Good afternoon, everyone.
Yes,
Please,
ma'am. Good afternoon po. We will now be taking your pic. Go ahead po, sir. Go ahead po. Go ahead po. Okay po, ma'am. We will now be taking po your pictures. I will count from 1 to 3 po. Please keep on smiling. In 3, 2, 1. Okay po, ma'am, sirs. Picture already taken po. Thank you po very much.
Thank you very much, the technical group, for having our pictures taken. Now, I would like to call on Ms. Virginia Peralta, Committee Chair of Membership Committee, also the Vice President for NCR and Southern Luzon, for the open forum. Ma'am G.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. This open forum is intended to give our participants an opportunity to air their views or questions about the topics discussed by our resource speakers. We have received hundreds of questions. Since we are live on our Facebook and we are being attended by thousands of our members from different chapters, this is from Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao. Your questions sent had been consolidated since most of them are the same in thoughts and already answered in the messages of our resource persons. However, we have selected only a few with the same thoughts to get in touch with all of your questions to be answered by our two resource persons, Dr. Garin and Ma'am Dr. Bravo. Number one question. This is coming from our sponsor, co-sponsor from our Seafarers. Ito po ang tanong nila. Can this vaccine help to solve the problem of many seafarers regarding their certificate processing in Marina because of the skeletal workforce, and quarantine procedures will still be required before going on board after seafarers are already vaccinated? Yan. Okay po. Number one question po natin yan. Ma'am Bravo, kayo po ba ang sasagot or si Dr. Garin?
Dr. Garin.
Dr. Garin, our seafarers are happy to see you both.
The answer there is we don't know. There are still
Actually,
lots of recommendations that will be given in the future.
yeah, Dr. Lulu Bravo is right. As of this point of time, there is no definite decision yet. However, the possibility that those with vaccine passports or IDs that they have already been vaccinated will be allowed international travel. So that's really one of the advantages. In fact, in some of the other countries, their seafarers are prioritized simply because they have to go back to work, they have to contribute to the economic recovery, and their families are expecting them at this time that it's very expensive to get sick because you have additional public health measure expense in a hospital setting.
Yes, thank you very much. Another question. I have allergies in penicillin and I am also taking amlodipine 10 mg once a day. My blood pressure is controlled. My question is, am I safe to be vaccinated? Is there a specific vaccine for such condition or any brand may be used? Another, those who are undergoing dialysis, pregnant women or breastfeeding mothers, are they also allowed to be vaccinated?
Okay, let me answer that. That's under the adverse events. And we do know that you need to be screened before you are given the vaccine. It is important that your medical history is taken. And if you do have allergies, if it is mild and your blood pressure is not that high, not beyond 140 to 150 and upwards, you can actually be delayed in your vaccination. Because sometimes you are anxious, you know, and I think I also had that experience. When you are anxious, your blood pressure rise up. So, or you are from a very hot environment, or you are, you know, you walk around for a long time waiting for the vaccine, your blood pressure could actually go up. So they will try to stabilize it first before you are given the vaccine. And then when you are given the vaccine, there will be a 30-minute at least post-observation period to see if you will have any allergy or any anaphylaxis. And sometimes we have seen some pseudo allergy. Did you know that? People are just so kind of anxious. And I just hope that you will feel relaxed. And if I have given you then some thoughts that you are going to be taken care of, then you don't have to have all these anxiety-related reactions, because there are so many of them. We are trying to monitor them. And for the pregnancy, you know, unless you are in a community with very high risk of COVID, unless you are in that community, we will try to delay your vaccination to some other. If you are a frontliner though, okay, if you are a pregnant frontliner, you can choose to get a vaccine. Because there have been studies that showed that pregnant women who got the vaccine did not have any adverse event. So there were only, you know, not very many, but at least it showed us that it is also safe to be given to pregnant women. But we are taking precaution that if you are not a health or a doctor, health frontliner, because right now, the ones who are being given the vaccine are the doctors, nurses, midwives, pharmacists, medtechs, right? So if you are there and you are pregnant, then you might opt, you can be given the vaccine. Okay? Does that answer most?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, just let me add a little to what Dr. Lulu Bravo said. Marami kasi ang nagtatanong, bakit po ba nabigyang atensyon yung ating pregnant women? True enough, the WHO has already recommended the Pfizer vaccine for pregnant women. It does not mean to say na bawal yung iba dun sa mga buntis, It simply means Pfizer po ang nakakumpleto ng mga datos na ibinigay sa ating SAGE or Strategic Advisory Group of Experts. However, Dr. Lulu Bravo is right. Dun sa mga buntis, let's wait, no? Kapag hindi ka naman nasa high-risk group. Pero ang importante po nating malaman, it's very important for us to know the role that pregnant women are contributing to the spread of COVID. It has been repeatedly shown time and again, not only in the Philippines, but especially in other countries, that pregnant women are prone to the infection. Madali silang mahawa, although most of them are asymptomatic, and many of them do not pass the virus to their babies. Pregnant women on the time of delivery are almost always the source of spread of infection in a hospital setting. Kapag nanganganak po sila, maski ano pa pong lahat naman po ng precautions ay ginagawa. However, the possibility of spreading the infection to our doctors and to our other allied medical health professionals are there, simply means nahahawa din yung ibang pasyente. That is why in the near future, if it will already be declared safe, kailangan talagang mabakunahan. Doon naman sa hindi pa buntis at nasa reproductive age, tapos pwede nang mabakunahan or nasa priority list ka na, it's good to be vaccinated so that when you become pregnant, you will not only protect yourself and your baby, you also protect our health workers.
Thank you very much, Dr. Garin. Another question, what is the program of government in terms of deployment of the vaccine? What is the time frame for the vaccination of more than 109 million Filipinos? And is the vaccine free for priority groups? If I am not part of the priority group, how will I get access to the vaccine?
Would you like me to answer, Lulu?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. The government, through Congress and Senate, has allocated 87.8 billion for the purchase of vaccines. However, what we have on the table is that this is not readily available cash. Kasi yung iba inuutang pa sa mga malalaking bangko like World Bank and ADB. Yesterday, we were informed that there was already approval of the 900 million loan that's dollars, no, for the Philippines. Ibig sabihin, habang pumapasok yung pondo, patuloy-tuloy na bumibili ng bakuna yung ating gobyerno. The deployment will be, initially it was deployed to our DOH hospitals and other tertiary hospitals. However, there's what we call a QSL or Quick Substitution List. Kaya kapag ikaw senior citizen, magpalista na sa iyong rural health center or city health office. Kapag ikaw naman merong comorbidities, have yourself listed. Especially if you intend to travel and go back to work for the seafarers and for women who are exposed, kagaya ng mga nasa public markets. Why? Based on experience, we have shown na marami ang nadidefer sa hospitals kasi yung iba nagka-COVID na at hindi pa nag-90 days post-recovery. Meaning, almost always during immunization schedule, may nadidefer. So makipag-ugnayan sa ating mga rural health units or city health offices kasi pag na ongoing na yung pagbabakuna, yung hospital workers na hindi available ay agad-agad na binibigay yung bakuna dun sa next in line. And since many seniors are still not being vaccinated because our government is still waiting for the information, additional information from the manufacturers of the vaccine, ang nangyayari po marami pong naipapasok under the QSL. So they are being vaccinated and it's really good kasi nauuna sila at hindi nasasayang yung panahon where we can already give protection.
Yes po. Thank you, Ma'am, Dr. Garin. Now, another question which is very interesting. Who is paying for COVID-19 vaccines? Do the Philippines intend to produce its own COVID-19 vaccines?
Production of vaccines is not that easy, So we hear a lot of claimers saying, bakit ba yung Pilipinas hindi gumagawa ng bakuna? When you manufacture vaccines, you have to be sure that you have a huge market, because what you will be spending in creating or constructing the facility will be much, much more rather than just importing the vaccines that are readily available. What is important is that we support our scientists like Dr. Lulu Bravo, and we actually have a good Filipino doctors, trialists, and scientists na kapag hindi na susuportaan, medyo nahihirapan sa kanilang trabaho. It's really good that the Philippines will always be part of clinical trials because it's not only added knowledge, it's also added information that can make the implementation of public health programs readily available in the Philippines because you have more data.
Yes, okay po. Another question, if I have already had COVID-19 and recovered, do I still need to get vaccinated with a COVID-19 vaccine? Another question, if I complete the vaccine series, will I still need to wear a mask and social distance?
Okay, I'd like to answer that. If you had a COVID disease, you can still get vaccinated after 90 days from the time you got the disease. You can get the vaccine 90 days after being positive for COVID. And then the other question on whether you can get another brand of COVID vaccine, we do not recommend interchangeability, meaning if you get one vaccine like Astra now and then next time you will get Sinovac, that is not acceptable. You should finish the dose that you started with, because getting different brands, we don't have any data on that. So be careful with that. The other one that I saw here about vaccination is that, yes, it is safe for seniors. I just wanted to say that. I'm a senior. I had already my vaccine.
Would it be okay for 80 years old above?
Yes. Did you know that the first vaccinee that was given in the UK on December 18 was a 92-year-old British subject and was given by a Filipina nurse. Did you see that? That was on the front lines. The very first vaccine that was officially documented was given to a 92-year-old female given by a Filipina nurse. December 18.
Okay. So yung pong nag-question po kung okay daw po ang 80 years old magpa-vaccine, yan po ang sagot ni Dr. Bravo. So thank you very much po for the information. Another question, will local pharmacies offer the COVID vaccine? Can I purchase the vaccine from private clinics or pharmacies?
Let's see if the Congresswoman would approve that.
Hindi po. Ganito po yun. Because the emergency use authorization has been issued and there is no CPR yet, it cannot be commercially available yet. Pero uulitin lang natin, hindi ibig sabihin na wala pang CPR ay hindi safe ang bakuna. An EUA means the vaccine is safe and effective. It's just that more data are being gathered and analyzed to come up with a vaccine literature that will pave way for the FDA to issue a CPR. Dagdag ko lang po, the Vice President of Indonesia, I think is 77 or 78 years old. He was one of those who was vaccinated. And there is also a doctor who is 99%. She was one of those who was early on vaccinated, I think last September, and she's doing good.
Okay, thank you very much. Another question, I have asthma and taking Seritide 250 mg discussed. Is it safe for me to be vaccinated?
Yes.
Yes.
Simple answer, yes.
Yes na yes. Okay po. Yung pong nag-question about asthma, yes na yes po. You can have your vaccination. Another question, those with autoimmune disorders, especially if on steroids, should not be vaccinated yet, according to Ma'am Janet. Okay, so they need to talk to their doctor. However, important for people in their immediate circle to be vaccinated to protect the patient indirectly. Okay, tama po ba yun, Ma'am Janet?
Yes, but Dr. Lulu Bravo, the mother of all experts, can expound on that.
Okay po. Dr. Bravo, yes.
It's about investigating and screening, because when you say you have some immuno disorders, meaning your immune system may have some kind of abnormal function, it may actually have a different response. So you may have no effect of the vaccine because your body will not react to it, or worse is if you have a vaccine that has some live virus in it, and it can actually become a little bit, it may have a different response, may not give you what we have seen from the clinical trials. So whenever there is a chance that your immune system is not functioning properly, your doctor must check what kind, because there are so many other various kinds of immune disorders. You can have like HIV or AIDS, right? Now, if you have AIDS, which is an immunodeficiency disorder, for example, it doesn't mean that you cannot get the vaccine. It just means that if your condition is stable, your CD4, for example, is okay, right? Your doctor will tell you if you're CD4, they will investigate that. They can give you the vaccine that is right for you. Maybe it's the mRNA or it's the Astra, but some vaccines that have not been tested for this kind of conditions will not be given to you. So it depends on what vaccine will be available and what kind of immune disorder you have. If you are just on steroid therapy for a prolonged time, maybe you can still be given the vaccine. Like Sinovac vaccine will be okay for you. So it always has to be investigated. There is no one answer to that, sorry.
Yes po. Thank you po, Doc. Another question, are persons with atherosclerosis and taking blood thinner safe to be vaccinated? Opo.
Yes. Those with atherosclerosis, basically yun yung may mga hypertension, yung iba may heart diseases, mas kailangan silang bakunahan because those with heart ailments and of course the diabetics are the ones that have more morbid COVID infection. However, at the time of vaccination, dapat normal yung kanilang blood pressure.
Okay, yes po. Kasi po marami nagtatanong na hypertensive sila, pero ang kanilang blood, kanila pong temperature at yung blood pressure ay controlled naman. So they are allowed to do vaccination, Doktora. No, ano po?
Yes. Yes.
Another from one of our chapters, how about those who are diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, are they allowed to be vaccinated? Yes, ma'am.
Okay, those are a lot of sclerosis, but definitely you will have to be assessed by your doctor. Because if you are in a condition that is so abnormal, maybe they may not give you the vaccine, because if you are in a condition where you might get to have something happening to you after the vaccine, like maybe it's not the vaccine, but you are kind of expected to have some other conditions occurring after some time. then they might not want to give you the vaccine because you might be mistakenly attributed to the vaccine if something happens to you, right? So this is something that they want also to avoid. And that is also being avoided in some other countries when something that is present may actually cause you to have a condition in a matter of days or weeks, you know, and you don't want that to be a recipient because people will get scared if something happens and then they will say, oh, this is due to the vaccine, right? So they have to weigh the benefits. So maybe the best way to deal with that is you stay home and the people who will take care of you must be vaccinated. I would think that, you know, the people taking care of you, because, you know, when you have multiple sclerosis, lateral sclerosis, you're usually bedridden, right? And you might not be able to really, you know, be healthy enough. So if something happens to you, you know, they might say, oh, it was because of the vaccine. So I would say that get all the people taking care of you vaccinated and you just stay home. Then you won't get COVID.
Yes, right, Doctora. We have to stay at home na. Another question. If this vaccine will work with the new strain of virus like in Japan or in UK?
Well, of course, Dr. Bravo is the expert, but on a general point of view, especially all the inactivated type of vaccines, they are presumed to be resistant to all possible mutations. While there are current mutations happening, you have the Brazil variant, you have the UK variant, you have the South African variant, there's even like a claim of a New York variant. The number is not that huge yet. Hindi pa siya ganun kadami. Kaya nga, mas maigi na mas mabilis tayong magpabakuna lahat-lahat because the faster and the more people are vaccinated, the less further mutations will happen. Remember, the mutations that we have now are simply been tweaked na mas nakakapanghawa sila. However, the mortality and the morbidity is similar to the original variants. If we stop testing, kung matigas pa rin ang ulo natin at marami pa rin ang patuloy na nahahawa ng COVID, the possibility of a mutation, a mutant that is more aggressive can increase the mortality and the morbidity is not impossible.
Yes, thank you, Doctor. Another question, ito po ay talaga naman pong very important po ito to be answered. Is it required to have PCR test to prove we are negative of COVID-19 virus before given the vaccine, or we could get vaccinated right away? Yes po. So may I repeat the question? Is it required to have PCR test to prove we are negative of COVID-19 virus before being given the vaccine, or we could get the vaccinated right away?
Oh, there's no need. There's no need for a PCR test, RT-PCR test when you get to be vaccinated. And, you know, you can pre-register and then get your vaccine. Should you be positive? Okay, this is a question that has also been asked many times. Should you be given the vaccine not knowing that you are positive? Okay, this has happened before. Number one, will the vaccine harm you? No, because in fact, it can even protect you. It might even give you a milder symptom if you are really positive, right? If you were actually incubating a COVID before you got vaccinated. But then you have to really be careful about this because some people, we have seen some people who got vaccinated and then the following day they had a some sort of cough cold, they tested positive for COVID. And some people were saying, did this come from the vaccine? Of course not. It's just that they had already, unfortunately, COVID before they were vaccinated. But as I said, it will not harm you even if you have the vaccine, because in fact, my thinking, of course, this has to be also evidence-based. We don't have that yet. But my thinking is that it can even protect you a little, because it can produce some antibodies maybe. But again, it will depend on your age, on the circumstances, the viral load. We always say, you know, it really depends. The severity of your symptoms depend on the viral load. How much COVID virus were you able to get, you know, the viral load. That's what we call the viral load. And of course, the age and your immune system. So there are many factors that will come about. But right now, we don't need to have a negative PCR before a vaccination is done.
Okay, thank you po. Nasagot na po ang question na if the person don't know that he is infected with COVID because he is asymptomatic and he got vaccinated with COVID vaccine, what are the risks po? Thank you very much, Dr. Bravo. Nasagot nyo na po itong tanong na ito. Thank you po. Another question, are there any health condition or medication that is not advisable for vaccination?
People who are on immunosuppressants, no? Patients who are taking immunosuppressants, that was explained earlier by Dr. Lulu Bravo, na kapag may immunosuppressants ka, it's not advised to be vaccinated. Kasi sayang baka hindi rin naman umepekto. That's also the reason why if you are a positive COVID patient, even if asymptomatic, you are presumed to have a natural protection. However, it is not long-lasting. Kaya after 90 days, you will be vaccinated. You have to be vaccinated again. Just to add on to what Dr. Bravo earlier said, no? So I know of one person, hindi niya alam na meron pala siyang COVID, nagpabakuna siya. So I think when this person was vaccinated, a month after nagpakuha siya ng kanyang antibodies, no? O kung yung mga sundalo na nagawa na, masyadong mataas, kaya nagulat siya. And when it was reviewed, he was positive for IgG. Ibig sabihin yung iba niyang antibodies, mataas yung kanyang IgG antibodies. Ang ibig sabihin nun, meron siyang mga luma na antibodies against COVID. At dumating itong bago, dala ng bakuna, naghalo sila. Hindi sila mag-aaway-away. They will help each other protect the patient. However, dahil kulang pa yung bakuna, mas maganda talaga na yung mga positibo o nagpositibo pa lang at less than 3 months ay hindi mo na magpabakuna.
Thank you very much po, Dr. Another question, how can we retract the notion that vaccines available now are not yet safe because of clinical issues like insufficient data, efficacy, availability, impact, and so forth?
I think we do emphasize the fact that when a vaccine is given an emergency use authorization by the FDA, which is backed by experts, data, and expert studies, and all the literature and all the things ongoing all over the world, that when it is approved, it is safe and effective. The government will not give you anything that will harm you. That is against the law of nature and of God and of humanity. Science is for humanity. So when you are given a vaccine, take it, because that is not just for you, but for your loved ones, for your family, and for your country. It is safe, it is effective. That is what we call vaccine confidence. And unfortunately, we have to work together to increase vaccine confidence in our country. All of you who are listening to us now, I do hope that the appeal of our experts will come to your conscience, that vaccinating is really for the safety of our country so we can get out of this pandemic, we can save lives, we can open up our economy, we can travel again, we can go back to schools, our children can go back to the school, we can get out from this quarantine, this stay home, we can go back to the malls and the restaurants. These are the safe vaccines. And I do hope, you know, if I were to really, I told you, I'm doing this in memory of those who actually suffered and has been victims of COVID. Thank you. Over to you, Congresswoman.
I entirely agree with Dr. Lulu Bravo. Idagdag ko lang. Put it this way. Dr. Lulu Bravo is an expert. She will not dare take the vaccine if it will harm her because she loves her life. Mahal natin lahat yung buhay natin. It's not a perfect life in this world, but it's a lot better rather than being dead. And Dr. Lulu Bravo has members, has doctors, other doctors in the family. Siyempre, kung anak mo, that's very precious to you. As an expert, if you know that it will hurt your son or your daughter, papabakunahan mo ba? That is a concrete example why experts, people all over the world, members of the World Health Organization, the Strategic Advisory Group of Experts, yun ang mga tao nakakaalam ng ins and outs. Every inch, every centimeter about the vaccine, alam nila lahat yan, alam namin lahat yan. So why do we hurt ourselves? Nagpapabakuna ka na because we know that it's safe. While it is true that no vaccine is safe, while it is true that there are minor and major adverse effects, no vaccine can cause deaths. And almost always, the adverse effect will be pain at the injection site. Pag nagkakalagnat yung isang tao, ibig sabihin dun, nagre-react yung kanyang katawan dun sa bakuna at gumagawa ng mga sundalo. And you can always take paracetamol. At kung meron kang mga panghihina o inaantok, we advise the patients to sleep. No? Yung ibang tao kasi, they would say, don't take vaccines because it's poison. But if you will ask them, is it for themselves? Is it their personal belief? Because most of the anti-vaxxers have also taken vaccines for their families. So kung titingnan mo, kapag walang basehan, if it is not based on science, it simply means it will not be for your own good. Because each allegation should be based on science and should be based on data. Kung hindi totoo ang bakuna, bakit na-eradicate natin yung smallpox? Bakit ngayon konti na lang yung nagkaka-chickenpox? Bakit dati-dati pagka may nagkatigdas, ang daming nabubulag, ang daming namamatay? Now it's the opposite thing. Why is it that hepatocellular carcinoma or liver cancer reduced to a huge extent? Because of hepatitis vaccination. It's proven science. Ano pa ang hahanapin natin? So if they ask us, how are we going to correct that notion? By simply showing that we love ourselves, we love our families, we love the world. That's why we are vaccinated.
Thank you very much, Dr. Another question from one of our board of directors. How available is the vaccine now and how many can be vaccinated by the current supply that we have? Yes, po.
Yeah, what I know is that 600,000 doses came for Sinovac. That's the donation of the Chinese government. Another 400,000 doses are in the pipeline. And the COVAX, which is the WHO facility, also brought in AstraZeneca. I think it's almost 500,000. It's 400,000 plus. And sa pagkakaintindi ko, by end of March or first week of April, 1 million doses of Sinovac procured by the Department of Health will also be coming. So ang isa na lang na pinapakiusap ko nga, I've conveyed this to officials of the Department of Health, dahil parating naman yung ibang mga bakuna, instead of waiting and reserving the second dose, why don't we use the second dose as part of the first dose to expand the population? Para yung darating na mga bakuna, yun na ang maging second dose. Para dumami ang mabakunahan. At least we'll be afforded some protection.
Okay, thank you very much. That's very clear. Hopefully, mabakunahan po lahat ng mga Pilipinos. By the year, kailan po matatapos, Doktora, ang ating bakunahan? Mga ilang taon pa po bago matapos? Mga 2030, ganun po? Siguro po, Doktora, ma-reach out natin yung ating mga Filipinos, especially sa mga remote areas, sa ating mga provinces, sa ating mga barangays na mahirap po ang mga doctors doon. So, another question, if you have COVID incubated in you and you are vaccinated, are you still spreading the virus to other people? Because it has been answered that there is no need for PCR test before a vaccination. Ayan po.
Yes, you can still spread.
Yes.
Kaya nga, maski nabakunahan ka na, importante pa rin ang mask, physical distancing, and minimum public health standards. In fact, it recently came out as part of the CDC advisory na kapag ikaw at yung mga kasamahan mo sa isang bahay ay nabakunahan na, it would be safe not to wear masks. But once you go out and mingle with people who have not been vaccinated, you have to put on your mask. Pero mas maganda pa rin talaga, you still wear masks because there's still a lot of unknowns about this virus. It's too early to say.
Yes. Yes po. Thank you, ma'am. Isa pa po, will the COVID vaccine be mandatory? Required po ba sa lahat ng seaman ang vaccine?
Well, it's really difficult to impose it, no? Kasi iba talagang may paniniwala hindi. But for other workplaces, no, might impose it, no? Especially if it's another country protecting their people. I believe that in the future, the vaccine passport will be recognized. Ang importante lang, no, because this is where the problem can start, no? Ang importante lang, let us never attempt to fake our vaccine passports, because once somebody does that, lahat po tayo mapapahamak, madadamay, no, yung buong sambayan ng Pilipino.
Yes. May tanong pa po, may waiver po ba bago magpabakuna? Especially po yung mga bata. Ilang taon po ba ang dapat bakunahan?
Wala pa pong bakuna para sa mga bata na edad 16 pababa. Actually, yung nasa Pilipinas ngayon, the Astra and the Sinovac is only for 18 and above. Ang meron pong below 18, yung 16 to 18, yung sa Pfizer. And we are also going to have that, they say, 117 doses in the near future. But it will be given to health frontliners. So, hindi mga bata po yan. Meron pong tanong akong nakita kung may ginagawa na raw ng mga bakuna para sa mga bata. And that is true. There are already vaccine development being done by some vaccine manufacturer for children. But I doubt if it will be coming in the next 6 months. Baka po at least a year or so bago tayo makakita ng bakuna para sa mga bata.
Okay. May follow-up question po doon. Can I choose which vaccine to get? How many doses of COVID-19 vaccine will I need to get?
Two doses.
Pwede po bang pumili sila ng brand ng vaccine?
Okay, from what I gather from the experts panel, only the health frontliners will be given the choice. Right now, there are 2 vaccines available, and as you know, they are the frontliners prioritized to get the vaccine. So they are 2, the Sinovac and the Astra, and the frontliners are given that choice. Unfortunately, this will not be true for all the rest of the population because there are so limited so limited, kakaunti lang po ang mga bakuna at pati po yung mga delivery siguro. So ang inaasahan po natin, at yan naman po ay in-announce din ng ating gobyerno at ating mga vaccine cluster, na kung ano pong bakuna ang mabibigay doon sa lugar na yon, yun lang po dapat ang makuha. At kung hindi po ninyo kukunin dahil gusto niyo mag-intay pa ng iba, pwede naman po. Kaya lang, pupunta na kayo doon sa bottom ng linya para sa susunod na pagbibigay. Hindi na po kayo makakalinya ng mas maaga doon sa susunod na pagbibigay ng bakuna. So, ang amin naman pong appeal is pag po yan ay ibinibigay sa inyo, ibig sabihin po niyan na nakapasok na yan, naka-test na yan at naibibigay na po, may authorization po ang mga eksperto na yan po ay safe and effective. Kaya lang po yung sa frontliners, kaya lang po nagka-choice doon. Kasi po yung naunang ibinigay ay hindi daw pwede nung una dahil kulang pa ang datos para sa mga health frontliners. So you are given a choice to get it or not. Sa totoo lang po, hindi po natin masasabi yan para sa lahat ng ating mga population, sa mga tao. So mabuti po kunin ninyo yung una pong maibibigay. Sabi nga namin, the best vaccine is the one that will be given to you in your arm. Kung ano pong available, yun po ang kunin natin.
Okay.
Ako po yun ang ginawa ko.
Meron pong question from the senior citizens. For seniors undergoing alternative medications, the COVID vaccine will compromise their recovery?
No. It won't. They can be vaccinated. They should be vaccinated. Talaga po kasing dapat bakunahan yung ating mga seniors dahil kapag sila ay nahawa ng COVID, 10% po sa kanila ang pwedeng mamatay.
Ayun. Meron pa po. Pag nagpa-vaccinate po ba, may possibility po ba na hindi magkaanak?
Ay, hindi po. Pwede pong mabuntis at pwedeng makabuntis.
Ayun. So, at may tanong po from Seafarers din po, what vaccine is required to all seafarers?
Basically, that's actually, yung po yung isa nating ipinaglalaban sa ngayon. No? Kasi naipakita naman ni Dr. Lulu Bravo na medyo nasa huli yung ating seafarers. And considering the fact na marami sa ating mga kapwa Pilipino ang hindi masyadong conscious sa exercise, maraming may high blood, maraming may comorbidities. So pagka masyadong malayo yung ating seafarers, mas matatagalan po ang kanilang pag-alis, especially in countries requiring vaccination as a prerequisite. Hopefully, kung medyo dumami ang bakuna, may posibilidad na baka naman pakinggan ito ng gobyerno because the seafarers are economic movers. Ang pakiusap lang talaga dito, tama si Dr. Bravo, the government, even World Health Organization and our experts will not give you a vaccine that is not safe. At kung hindi yan magandang bakuna, hindi yan makakapasa maski sa phase 1 ng clinical trial. In other words, the vaccine that is available is proven to be safe and effective and the benefits outweigh the risks. So kung yung iba nag-iisip na, nako baka aprobado sa Pilipinas pero pagdating dun sa country of destination, walang EUA ang bakuna na ginamit sa kanila. That is not a problem because what is important is your vaccination card.
Yes, thank you very much for that. That would be our last and final question. May we hear inspirational message, short message from Dr. Garin and Dr. Bravo, ma'am, before ending our open forum. Dr. Garin, please.
May nakita po akong tanong dito na sabi, bakit po madali? Di ba dapat 5 taon before matapos ang isang bakuna? Yung tagal ng pag-develop ng isang bakuna ay dahil hindi ganun kadali maghanap ng subjects for a clinical trial. However, in this pandemic, dahil lahat po ay naghahanap ng solusyon, ang daming nagboluntaryo. So if we talk about vaccines, we are talking about solutions to a current pandemic. Maski ano ang gawin natin, wala itong magiging solusyon kung hindi kaakibat ang bakuna sa ating gagawin. We love our life, we love our families, we love our community. And being vaccinated is not just all about you. It's all about living a healthy and good world and environment na ipapamana natin sa ating mga anak. Imagine if our ancestors didn't want the smallpox vaccine. Imagine kung dating panahon ay grabe ng infodemic, sana hanggang ngayon may smallpox pa rin. We were able to eradicate a lot of illnesses at namumuhay tayo ngayon na wala ng smallpox, konti ng measles, wala na halos polio, konting-konti ng hepatitis dahil yung ating mga ninuno ay nagpabakuna. Let us do the same for our children because they deserve that and we all deserve a healthy and better world. Maraming salamat po. More power to women. And women should all be advocates of vaccination.
Okay, thank you po. Dr. Lulu Bravo, please.
Well, actually, I always believe that we are living right now in a different world. More than 100 years ago when we had a pandemic, and now everybody is suffering immensely. We have lost a lot of our frontliners, friends, some family, a lot of them. And this is now an occasion for us to save our country, to save our people. And other than the masking and washing hands and distancing, which we have to do whether you are vaccinated or not, the vaccine will add that important tool, the most important way for us to get out of this pandemic. And we should, and this is the best message of all, we should listen to the experts because vaccine is very complicated. I know everyone wants to know now what vaccine is all about, but there are millions of things that we have to learn before we can say that, yes, we know about vaccine. No, even I don't know many things. A lot of people don't know many things, but we do this because we are scientists, because there is science behind it. We do not listen to social media that says vaccine is harmful. We do not listen to the devil who wants to say that, conspiracy theories that the vaccines will cause this and that, will get you into sterility, will give you chips, microchips that will tell you this and that. These are really so absurd. They are not based on science. We must believe in science. We must believe in the truth and the vaccines that will save us from this pandemic. And last but not least, let us not practice prejudice and politics when it comes to our health. Please lang po, wag po tayong magsabi, naririnig po natin, ayoko niyang bakunang yan kasi inaagaw nila ang Philippine West Sea. Wala pong connection, hindi ho ba? Wag po tayong magtiwala sa mga prejudices at biases. Sa science po, ang mga eksperto po, yan ang tinitingnan. Nakakaawa naman po na basta na lang tayo magsabi na hindi natin kukunin ang bakuna kasi ginagawa nilang 3 ang Palawan. Di ba? Yun lang po. Sa experts po tayo, sa science po tayo upang mailigtas ang ating buhay. Marami po tayong mapapag-alaman. Kami naman po sa Philippine Foundation for Vaccination are willing to answer questions. Mag-login po kayo sa aming mga website Kami po ay accredited ng WHO for vaccine safety. And if you want to learn more, marami po kaming basic vaccinology course doon. You can log on for free and you can learn so much more. Ang dami pong pwede ninyong malaman tungkol sa vaccinology for all those who want to learn more. Yung pong Philippine Foundation for Vaccination, we are trying our best to really commit to the education and to the advocacy of the value of vaccination. Thank you po.
Yes, thank you po. And we do believe to our two experts that why do we have to be vaccinated? First, to prevent severe disease and death, prevent clinical disease, and also to prevent transmission of these diseases and virus. So with that, we would like to thank our resource speakers, Dr. Garin and Dr. Bravo, for their effective contributions and sharings on their expertise. And I am also grateful to our participants for spending their time in attending this webinar and also for participating in this open forum through sending their questions and concerns. Thank you very much for this very important event and the great opportunity of learning and hearing the messages of our two experts. Thank you very much, Dr. Garin and Dr. Bravo. Good afternoon.
Salamat. Thank you.
Happy weekend to all of you. See you, Congresswoman Garin. See you next week.
Thank you, Doc Lulu. Maraming salamat, Dr. Nona Ricafort. And thank you to the organizers. Maraming salamat
Thank
po.
you, thank you. We learned a lot from both of you. Buti na lamang we offered this literacy webinar. And with the two experts, now we know what to do. I was just a while telling my husband, talaga magpapavaccinate tayo. Thank you. That was a good message to us.
Salamat. Thank you, Doc. Salamat sa lahat.
Maraming salamat po, Ma'am Virgie. Maraming salamat, Kong-Sec Janet Garin and Dr. Lulu Bravo. Now, we now proceed to consolidate and synthesize our discussion is the constant and the steadfast co-chair of the Health Committee, Ms. Connie Hermono.
Thank you very much, Myra, and also thank you very much to our guest speakers, to Secretary Garin and Dr. Bravo for a very informative session this afternoon. So I'd just like to synthesize what transpired during the discussion this afternoon, and I'd like to point out some important points, and that is literacy is very important to address the hesitancy of a lot of Filipinos, especially on the topic of vaccination for COVID-19. And as we heard from our speakers, COVID-19 is fast and silently spreading. Hence, we have the vaccination as a response, which will stimulate the immune response of people that will produce antibodies that is needed to prevent severe diseases and death, clinical diseases and transmission. And history has proven that vaccines has decreased the cases of various diseases all over the world, and the benefits outweigh the risk. And also, most fears are of not just Filipinos, probably all over the world. The fears are coming from misinformation, the side effects or the adverse effects to people with medical condition, or people taking a particular medication, or people with allergies, or for senior citizens as well. And then we heard once we heard the side effects and the adverse effects, we become fearful of taking the vaccination. But let us consider that this may not be related by the vaccines itself. So hence surveillance and monitoring are strictly observed by the experts. And COVID-19 is real, and it's already here. So together with the doctors, specialists, and authorities, we should work together to combat further the spread and minimize the cases of death. And we should trust also that these vaccines has undergone series of testing and investigation to ensure safety and efficacy. And there are still many unanswered questions and uncertainties. However, with the continuous clinical testing that are being done or conducted, we hope that we'll be able to come up with the answers to these questions and uncertainties. And what is important at this point is we consult with the physicians, with our physicians or the experts to address our medical concerns or comorbidities or existing medical conditions. And most of the questions that that arise during the open forum are focused on the logistics and the administration of the vaccine in terms of screening, purchasing, the deployment, and even on the documentation for seafarers. And it was also questions on the safety and risk in the administration of vaccine to people with medical conditions, senior citizen, and people with immunocompromised condition. And it was also stressed that communication and awareness on vaccine confidence is very crucial at this point and what we need now as a country. And lastly, we should always be vigilant and critical on what we read or hear and validate the sources and the reliability of the information that we will read or get from social media or even from the news. And as mentioned by both of our speakers, prevention is always better than treatment. So with that, thank you very much and hope you learned a lot from our session today.
Thank you, Ms. Connie, for that short but substantial synthesis that you've shared with us. Surely, surely it has opened our minds and decide that we want to be part of the herd community. To close this program is an educator who prided herself as one of the best during her time up until she retired. She is the Vice President of the Northern Luzon of YWCA-FFPI, Dr. Jesusa Caraig.
The webinar we had this afternoon proved to be very helpful in allaying our fears, assuaging our doubts, calming our worries, and easing our anxieties on the various vaccines made available for us and on getting vaccinated. It is now our duty and responsibility as responsible citizens to make enlightened decisions after having been well informed, not by hearsays, but by truth backed by science. We heard and learned from authorities and from the experts. So again, on behalf of the YWCA Founders Federation of the Philippines Incorporated, we would like to express our profound gratitude to Honorable Janet Garin and Dr. Lilu Bravo for freeing their very busy schedule to join us today. Our fight to combat COVID-19 is a collective or concerted effort. Our sincerest thanks also to all the participants, be it on FB Live or via Zoom. By attending, you have made that important step to answer the call for us to unite as a nation and as a people. we still need to follow the minimum public health standards or protocols. What you have learned today about COVID-19 vaccine, share to others. Let us not be complacent. Decide wisely. It's your right and responsibility. On this note, I wish everyone a good afternoon and a restful evening. Stay safe, everyone. Godspeed.
Thank you, Dr. Karaig. Meantime, we would like to introduce the International Maritime Organization Alliance of Seafarers towards achieving IMO's global goals with their advocacy to promote seafaring as a profession and seafarers as essential worker in this global pandemic. Please watch this special video prepared by IMO-ASTIG and the original song composition of one of their members to give tribute to the seafarers as they work towards moving the economy amidst the pandemic. Thank you, IMO-ASTIG. We wish you success in all your endeavors, and thank you also to our very own IMO ambassadress of goodwill.
All of life is a coming home, straight into your arms where I belong. All these valiant hearts of the sea, there's a place tonight they need to be. Travel the world from port to port, break blood, sweat to give support to our wives and kids who back home wait for the bright future we may create. A husband with passion to excel, a challenge too big enough to quell. The power with bad times we go on and on and on and on. A husband with passion to excel, a challenge too big enough to quell. The power with bad times we go on and on and on and on, on and on and on and on, on and on and on. waters here and there, carry goods from everywhere, with bonds as thick as blood, whose helm is steered by God, our spirit unsinkable. Our hearts burn with passion to excel, from challenge to big enough to battle with bad attacks. We go on and on and on and on. Our hearts burn with passion to excel, from challenge to big enough to battle with bad attacks. We go on and on and on and on. We go on. We go on. We go on. We go on. All of life is coming home, straight into your arms where I belong. All these valiant hearts of the sea, there's a place tonight they need to be. Ooh, passion to excel, challenge to big enough to battle with bad attacks. We go on and on and on and on. Our hearts fill with passion to excel, challenge to big enough to battle with bad attacks. We go on and on and on and on. We go on. We go on. These modern heroes called to serve, they're the ones who move the earth. Their names worthy of salute and cheer. Our seafarers of the year. Our seafarers of the year.
Thank you very much, IMO-ASTIG, and we wish you success in all your endeavors. And thank you also to our very own IMO Goodwill Maritime Ambassador, Miss Josie J. Francisco. Truly, our seafarers are modern heroes. Thank you very much. And in behalf of the YWCA-FFPI Young Women Christian Association, Founders Federation of the Philippines, Inc., the International Maritime Organization, and the IMO-ASTIG, our gratitude to our resource speakers, Ma'am Janet and Dr. Lulu, for sharing your expertise. Truly, we are now enlightened. And to all of you, our members, and all the attendees of this webinar, for joining us in one of the most important and most sought webinar. This is your moderator, Myra A. Doncila, Vice President for Visayas, Chairperson, Committee on Public and Health services. Join us in singing our YWCA hymn.
Beloved triangle blue, dear YWCA, we bring our hearts together in bonds of friendship true. With body, mind, and spirit, thy honor we promise to uphold. With pride we will cheer and honor thee, beloved YWCA. Beloved triangle blue, dear YWCA, we bring our hearts together in bonds of friendship true. With body, mind, and spirit, thy honor we promise to uphold. With pride we will cheer and honor thee, beloved YWCA. With pride we will cheer and honor thee, beloved YWCA.
Maraming salamat po.